So good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Karen Russo. I'm a longtime member of the New Vision Center, and I am honored to be here. We've had a wonderful summer. Reverend Leslie and others have been leading us in this Summer of You, looking at the deepening of understanding who we are individually. And today's topic is be like who? Be like who? And it's natural, as spiritual beings who are unfolding, for us to have the desire to want to model, to learn from, to be inspired by messages and ideas from others. And today, the question is when, if, how, who, and what are you modeling in your spiritual unfoldment? I highly recommend that you select an area of your life to apply today's message to. So that could be a personal thing. I'm working with this question of what's the big idea of vitality and energy at this stage of life? I want to have a deeper experience of that. So it could be an individual thing that you want to heal or transform or expand on. And it absolutely could be a collective call. What does it mean to have peace on earth at this time? So choose something in your mind that you're going to be working with. And we will weave the musing and the thread through together. And we're going to begin with a story. So the big fella and I had a wonderful weekend up in Northern California recently, and we took a workshop, a mindfulness workshop, and it was led by Dan Zigman. And he is a Zen master and was just a wonderful instructor for this weekend workshop. He was clear, he was kind, it was very good. And he told a story. So it's 1974, and a young Dan Zigman is back in Pennsylvania on the East Coast at a liberal arts college, and he's taking a variety of classes, including a class on Eastern mysticism and mindfulness. And Dan's beloved best friend and roommate, Howard, became very, very ill. And so Dan and Howard's girlfriend, and this is kind of the 70s, so not everybody's, on their cell phones, they didn't quite know what to do. Howard's really sick. And so they got him to a local hospital. And they got Howard checked in. He had a respiratory thing. He was not doing well, and he was looking forward to a pretty difficult night. And so Dan asked, can we stay? And the nurse said, sorry, visiting hours are over. No, we really want to stay with our friend. Sorry, clergy only. And so Dan Zigman got an idea. And so he reached out to the teaching assistant who'd come from Japan for his Eastern mysticism class, and he asked the gentleman, can I borrow your Buddhist monk robes? And here's the thing. I don't quite know how this worked out, but the guy said yes. So he gave Dan not the formal priest robe, but the saffron junior Zen monk robe. And so Dan, this was his good idea, he went, he took the bus back to his dorm room, he put on the saffron robe, and he started to make some decisions. He said, if I am a Zen monk, then I am only going to wear sandals as I walk across the snowy campus toward the hospital. If I am a Zen monk, I'm going to be nicer to people. If I am a Zen monk, I am going to speak slowly and refrain from using contractions. And he worked himself until he arrived at the hospital and said to the night nurse, I'm here to see Howard. Sorry, visiting hours are over. I am a Zen monk. Third door on the left. And so there he went down to spend the evening with Howard, and apparently he did this for a full week, just quietly sitting with his friend at night and taking on this persona that I am a Zen monk. And then we assume the robes got back to the right person, and Dan then studies. He studies, and he goes to the, let me get this right, the Jikoji Zen Temple in Northern California. He becomes a Zen priest. He studies mindfulness. He becomes a teacher. And what are we to take from this story? Should we impersonate the clergy and mislead authorities? Yeah, Reverend Leslie says, maybe not. I think what we can take from this is it is really powerful what we say and believe about ourselves. And when we start to develop the I am a generous person, or I can heal the thing with mother, or I can get through this challenge with debt and come out the other side, if we have a belief and a claim about ourselves, it can be true. And that's what I want us to really work with, is that we each have an infinite capacity for who we can be, and using the inspiration and models of others can be very powerful. So one of the things you've probably heard this phrase before, WWJD. Have people heard that question? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? WWJD. So I am going to suggest that for us, that is an excellent question. That question first came, it was 1897, a novel by Charles Sheldon, which was called What Would Jesus Do? And then it was popularized in the 1990s by a youth leader, Jamie Tinkleberry. And in some ways, people thought this was a wonderful thing. Others thought maybe it trivializes the life and teaching of Jesus. I think it's a great question, and here's why. In our Science of Mind teaching, we believe Jesus. We believe his teaching. We are so grateful that he models for us a fully realized spiritual being, someone who totally understands their oneness with the infinite and then lives their life in accordance with that. So our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, who was in Science of Mind has a 100-plus-year-old tradition, including religion and science and philosophy, and the teachings of Jesus absolutely inspired Ernest Holmes. And he coined the phrase, we think of Jesus as the great example, not the great exception. So in our teaching, we really believe Jesus' teachings, but we do not believe he is the only one who can have a spiritual realization. And I just want to, I think shouting out to Jesus is a good thing for us to do on a Sunday morning. So our teaching has two big ideas. One is love, which is the unity of all life. The other is law, which is that consciousness creates. And, Ernest Holmes needs a 4-inch textbook to teach us love and law. Jesus has a couple of phrases, right? So he would say, the kingdom of heaven is where? It's within. So he's able to say that the Father and I are one. When you see me, you see who sent me. This is a speaking in a parable way. In our teaching, we would say that God, Spirit, is mother, father, androgynous principle that includes the everywhere present, the immanence, the within us, and the personal relationship, the I-thou relationship. So Jesus gives us the model of love, and Jesus gives us an 8-word teaching for the power of law. It is done unto you, say it with me, as you believe, which is one of the simplest ways to say consciousness acting through law creates our experience. And so asking what would Jesus do is a great example of us taking the positive word, license, the authority, the idea that we can be inspired by the work of others. And we have an Ernest Holmes quote about how we can relate ourselves to Jesus. So Dr. Holmes says, Jesus was inviting people to penetrate more deeply into their own nature, our own natures. If us would find peace and comfort, God can only work for us only by working through us. And so this idea of modeling a Buddha, modeling a Jesus, I just want to acknowledge that it's not always easy. And so I've got a quote from the work of Vicky Falcone. So Vicky Falcone, she wrote a book on parenting. And the first line of her book is, "I was a great parent before I had kids." So the parents are all laughing here. And the title of her book is Buddha Never Raised Kids and Jesus Didn't Drive Carpool. 7 Principles for Parenting with Soul. You gotta love that. Buddha never raised kids, Jesus didn't drive carpool. And what she says is, in the beginning, I struggled as I attempted to apply my newfound knowledge to the real-world problems of parenting. How exactly do you, as A Course in Miracles states, see the peace inside of this when the kids are ripping each other's hair out in the back of the car? How do you practice Zen Buddhism's mindfulness when it's midnight and you still face 3 loads of unfolded laundry and a sink full of dirty dishes? And how do you follow Gandhi's exhortation to be the change you wish to see in the world when you're running on 2 hours of sleep and your hubby would like some attention? So we may not have had her exact experience, but I think we've all had that feeling of taking a lofty spiritual idea and sort of looking at the grubbiness and pettiness of our coworkers, or the challenges of the world, or our own history of something. So how do we do it? How do we do it? And this is a technology that can set us free. And that is, we are always, when we have a desire, we are always invited to think about what is the spiritual quality of the thing that I desire, and then also what is the experience that I desire. Because both can lead us toward transformation, healing, expansion. So for example, it may be that the thing that's up for you is, I've got to have a different experience with my money. And if I only had $42,000, that could get me out of this and into that. And we have great respect for whatever specific thing feels like it's up for you. The invitation is on the other side, if you had that 42, like what then would you have? Because almost always what comes is, well, then I would feel free, or then I could be creative. The same thing if it's, I really want a romantic love partner. If you say, like, when you get that perfect person, what then are you going to have? And it always turns out it's love, it's passion, it's belonging. If it is, I just want the wars to end, what is there through that desire is, I want peace and justice and inclusion and a different experience. So ask yourself, what is the quality and what's the experience? And those are the watchwords that get us started. And then the next step is to realize that because we are one with the whole, that those qualities, we have them within. Each of us has enormous capacity for light and capacity for darkness, capacity for this, capacity for that. And when we understand our vast capacity, we start to also realize, here comes the paradoxes, that our unity does not mean uniformity, as Holmes would say, right? We have an individuality that is precious and purposeful and unique. And so each of us has a self that is individualized. And this sense of self, it's one of the themes of this wonderful movie that is coming out. And I'll say a few words, and then I'll ask Rhonda to show the slide in a moment. So some of you know the first movie was Inside Out, and then this summer it's Inside Out 2. So who has seen that? Oh, okay. So it's about a quarter of the people. So I'm going to say a few things that will not ruin your experience of it. I loved this movie. So the first one, Inside Out, is the story of a young girl named Riley, and it's all about the emotions inside of her, anger and joy and sadness and fear, and how they work together for her memories and her imagination and her life. Inside Out 2, we see how that team of emotions, they've been doing things like taking bad memories and putting them in the way back and helping Riley to develop this sense of, I'm a good person, I'm a 12-year-old with these emotions. But then, as Inside Out 2 begins, they hit the red button and puberty happens. Riley turns 13. And so new emotions come on board. And there's anxiety and embarrassment and envy, and my favorite, ennui, who is a bored teenager. Who's like, anyway. So all these new emotions come, and with the new emotions, when Riley goes off to a summer camp, some things are happening with her. And one of the things we see is we see anxiety tugging on her sense of self. So Rhonda will show this slide that we've got. So you see the experience of anxiety and self-doubt and what that does to young Riley. And it's a very interesting, it very much a heartfelt thing. We see the more anxious she becomes, she makes some decisions where she turns on her friends and she does something that's dishonest. And it starts to erode her sense of self. And it becomes this idea, I'm not a good person. But, and we can give anxiety a rest there, but what's wonderful about this movie is that sense of self journey. I'll let you all enjoy it. But it turns out that our sense of self is not just one way or another. And the complexity of taking those memories that are in the way back and bringing them forward because they have value for us as well as understanding we have this vast capacity, that's really a way to develop an understanding of who we are that's precious and unrepeatable, but also ever expanding. And so, this journey of who do we model and who do we look to, I definitely encourage you, for whatever the thing is that's up for you, if you want more equanimity in the workplace, do you have a Buddha-like wise elder in your life who doesn't lose her cool when someone says this or says that? If you want more love in the family, could you have a Jesus-like gracious friend who's able to forgive that you could look to? And if you want to be more prosperous and generous, is there a pop star who changes the economy of every place her tour stops? Leslie says yes. Okay. You want to be more compassionate and caring? Mother Teresa and her life and legacy. So use the desires you have and the models that are around us to inspire you. And then I want to say this is both an individual and a collective thing. So it was beautiful. Yesterday, we had 40 people here in the chapel, that was awesome, who were here for a collective desire to be more peaceful. We did an event called Politics, Prayers, and Peace, with 40 people in a room, all of us saying, around political issues, how can we be the peace? And it was a beautiful opportunity of like, we want to be the peace, so what do we need to say? What do we need to do? What do we need to realize? I've been talking a lot about, be like who? Be like this one, be like that one. But ultimately, here comes the final paradox. You see, you don't have to improve. You don't got to fix anything. You don't have to be more of this or less of that, because each of us are made in the image and likeness of the infinite in an individualized and precious and perfect way. So you don't need to do one more thing. And paradoxically, it's our nature to always want to spiral upward and transform. So our ultimate lesson is be like you. Be like you. Because within you, you have infinite capacity. So if you have ever had a breakthrough about something, if you've had a recovery from a substance and a sense of freedom, you can absolutely figure out how to take care of that debt and move on the other side of it. If you have reconciled with a parent through powerful forgiveness and compassion, then you absolutely can get a job in the field of your choice. It's possible for you to use your own life and experience as a model, because your own life, your own experience, it's magnificent. So be like who? Be like you. And so it is. That's all right. So let us take this into prayer. Please join me in recognizing that the infinite is the all-creative, all love, all power, all truth, all wholeness, like every quality of being in its magnificent, unrepeatable, ever-present, ever-unfolding reality. That is the truth of life. One life, God's life, Spirit's life, our life. And I'm so grateful to recognize our oneness with the infinite and that each and every one of us, we are vessels of individual expression for this beautiful, powerful, infinite reality. And from that, what I claim and know and accept for myself and for each and for all, that we are on a journey of wholeness, completion, and perfection, and ever unfolding into being more of the magnificence we are here to be. Our contributions are profound, our reality is limitless, and our love, our grace, our peace, our truth, our abundance, our wholeness, our right action is at hand. I give great thanks for how this prayer unfolds. It is a blessing to the New Vision Center, to all beings, to all people, to all places. We give great thanks. The prayer is released. As it is spoken, it is done. And together we say, and so it is.